my heart when I say that Professor Ramesh Koti has been working very, very hard to get this conference going. He's been planning this for over a year's time, at the conceptual level, and despite many hiccups, despite many things happening all around him, it has materialized. So I thank Ramesh, who's a dear friend, and his wonderful team, Dr. Jyotirmayi, and the others of Adikavi Nannaya University for bringing this very important conference to light in Andhra Pradesh. Perhaps the first one of its kind. So I've been given this very pleasurable task of introducing the field to you. I will not try to be very technical because I think most conferences are about boring jargon, and I promise not to use jargon, so it's going to be more of a tete-a-tete. We'll just chat about, I have this very, very big title, right? Just look at it. Aranyakas in the Anthropocene, Women Writing Nature. You can choose to ignore it. But I think the key word here is the Anthropocene, because the conference is called Writing the Anthropocene, isn't it? So, sorry.
Santosh?
It's fine. Right. So I'm going to begin with a small story from the Dhammapada. Right? All of us know that Gautama the Buddha was a great teacher, like all your professors, and he had trained many teachers. So Ananda was one of his foremost disciples who was training a lot of students. Right? So one day Ananda is listening to a student chanting a verse from the Dhammapada. It is better to live a single day having obtained knowledge of the heron in the water than to live 100 days without the knowledge of the heron in the water. Does this make sense?
Yeah.
Actually, Sukanta Chowdhury in the Metaphysics of the Text talks about this incident from the Dhammapada. So instead of saying Udayavyayam, which means the beginning and end of things, the student had made a mistake. The student mispronounces the Sanskrit word Udayavyayam and says Udatabaka, which means heron in the water. Ananda is very ashamed. He says, please go correct your Sanskrit. You're not doing the right thing. And the student is very chastised. He sits in a corner and sulks. Then the Buddha goes to him and says, your teacher Ananda is in dotage. He's become old. Don't worry about it. What you decided was indeed the correct thing. It is indeed the heron in the water. Now, let us meditate on this phrase, heron in the water, because it links to the concept of the Anthropocene. I'm sorry. So I have this little subtitle, Who and Where We Are, right? And I've also used this big word, eco-ontological imperative. Now, ontology, the word is used in metaphysics. Ontology is basically the inquiry about being. Who are we? Right? It's one of the basic questions which informs our philosophical pursuits. Who are we? Ontology. But living in our troubled times, we have to talk about eco-ontology. What is the self in relationship to the earth? That's why I called it the eco-ontological imperative. And who and where are we? That's what I'm going to talk about. So Anthropocene, I'm sure Mr. Christine must have, I missed her wonderful lecture, but I'm sure she broached on the topic. Anthropocene is a complex word, and it's a riddled question. Our own identity, our being is a very riddled question in this Anthropocene era. So when did the Anthropocene begin? Did it begin in the 15th century with Christopher Columbus and the European Holocaust of the Americas? Did it begin with the invention of the steam engine? Did it begin with the nuclear bomb dropping over Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945? did it begin with the Great Acceleration? Right? The period when humankind rapidly began to enter the industrial age is called the Great Acceleration. Did it begin with the Great Acceleration? Regardless, I think scholars have different definitions or different takes on when the Anthropocene began. But it has begun. And what is the Anthropocene? Any answers to this? What is the Anthropocene? Anthropo, when you say anthropo, it means man at the center. Right? Man at the center was really not the favored worldview, even in Western context. Right? I'm sure as students of philosophy, history, literature, all of you must be familiar with this term called the Great Chain of Being. Right? The medieval Christians, they believed in the Great Chain of Being. So in the Great Chain of Being, you had God at the topmost position, then you had the angels, then you had man, then you had animals, then you had plants, then you had minerals. So it was a hierarchy, but it was not as though, every hierarchical strata excluded the other. Right? You must more or less think of it as some kind of a holarchy. Everything is a whole, but it's also a part of the whole. Right? That was the Western worldview. But now we've lost it. Right? We are at the center of the universe. Anthropo literally means that we have modified the world's resources. We have changed the weather. We have changed the climate. So hurricanes and floods are no longer acts of God, but they are acts of man. Right? So there's this wonderful book by a journalist called Bill McKibben. It's called The End of Nature. Mark the title. It's called The End of Nature. End of nature does not mean the death of nature. The end of nature means the end of an idea. Right? Because the moment we say nature, obviously because you live in a very beautiful state, there is natural beauty all around. Nature is always this independent, mysterious other, right? We speak of the rural as opposed to the urban, right? So nature has this alterity. So that's why we always fall back on nature for support, for encouragement, whatever. If you look at pastoral literature, that is the tone set by attitudes to nature. But in the Anthropocene era, nature is no longer the comforting idea because it has become subject to human agency. So nature, the very beauty of nature lies in its independence. Nature has lost its independence, and therefore it's become something which has to be mediated through human action. Oh, that's very frightening, isn't it? It's frightening. We can no longer go back to nature as a pristine, transcendental other, right? Clean the Ganga projects have not worked despite governments pumping in so much money. What do you think the reason is? What do you think the reason is? The Divine River. You have the second largest river flowing through your state. Yes. But why cannot the Ganga be cleaned? It's a very simple answer, and it's around cultural conditioning, right? Because basically we think of...
Awareness should be created.
Huh?
Awareness in the public is needed.
Yes. No, but I think everybody knows that it is bad that rivers get polluted. It's bad to dump sewage into rivers. Everybody knows this. But I was in Varanasi 4 months back, and the waters are dark, blank. People still continue to take their dip. People still continue to cremate bodies near the Manikarnika Ghat. People still continue to draw water from the, polluted river to bathe the idols. It's the holiest of rivers. There is human agency, which perhaps is not effective. Right? Because we think, that's in a cultural conditioning, we think that the Ganga is such a pure river, she can clean herself. She washes our sins, so she can wash herself, right? So who can clean the Great Mother? So that's the cultural conditioning. So that's why. So the Anthropocene is perhaps a result of many such, limiting beliefs that we have about nature. So let me go on to the next slide. So let me also invoke this very famous book, this important book. It's called Ecology Without Nature. Just think about the title. It's by one Timothy Morton. It's called Ecology Without Nature. So Timothy Morton says, in order to have ecology, we have to let go of nature. Right? This is a very radical statement. So nature, no longer with a capital N, which stands for purity, which stands for transcendence, which stands for order. Right? Nature with a small n. Nature as environment, something which surrounds us, of which we are a part. So the Anthropocene is about dark ecology. It is about processes of decomposition, putrefaction, pollution, right? What you call the dark thanatos, right? The death-giving energies. We have to handle it, right? For example, how do we look at trash? How many of us are comfortable with the idea of trash or muck? Or let's forget the environment for a minute. All of you must have read Sigmund Freud at least. So when Freud speaks about, the muck in our subconscious selves, like the ethnic drives, right? Is anybody comfortable about talking about these subconscious ethnic drives in us? Anybody? Will anybody, if I say, come on, please tell me a few things which lie hidden in your psyche. Can you just share it with all of us? None of us will do it. Muck is like that. Because whatever we don't want to acknowledge, we trash it. Not in my backyard, but it can go into somebody else's backyard. So that's the thing, right? So dark ecology or Anthropocene ecology is bringing the background into the foreground. Nature is no longer the passive agent, right? The passive raw material which man can fashion according to his own will and wish. Nature has agentic force, right? She can destroy. She can, look at the floods in Kerala, look at look at climate change, right? So Amitabh Ghosh, in his recent book, The Great Derangement, talks about how climate change and other disturbing things about weather demands a different kind of literature from us. So people who live in these troubled times go to art expecting some reflection or at least a hint of, dwelling on these important subjects, right? And if art doesn't do that for you, it is the great derangement, according to Amitabh Ghosh. Now, before getting into the Anthropocene text, I'd like to discuss the word nature with you, right? Nature, Raymond Williams, the cultural critic, calls nature perhaps the most complex word in the English dictionary. Nature is, for people who do physics, it's easy. Nature is just about the physical laws which structure our universe. That's very simple, straightforward. But for most of us, nature is anything which is not us, right? Nature has many other cultural connotations. A very pertinent question, which eco-critics are fond of asking. I'm quoting John Passmore, the poet. So he says, can you define a weed? W-E-E-D. Can you define a weed? Weed. A weed. W-E-E-D. Weed. Not marijuana which you smoke. No, not that. Just a weed. All of you have gardening spaces. I'm sure you've come across weeds in the garden. What is a weed?
But they're saying it means unnecessary.
Unnecessary. Sorry, I don't understand that. Very sorry about that. Okay. Anything which is unnecessary, unwanted. Any other definition? Sorry? Oh, it provides for, that's a positive definition coming up. It provides fertility to the soil. Any other definition?
Takes the main food of the main crop.
Parasite. So it has to be gotten rid of, parasite. Any other? Parasite, unnecessary. Any other definition?
Trivial.
Huh? Trivial. That's what you said, yes. Something which is trivial.
Unavoidable plants.
Unavoidable, trivial, parasitic. So look at all the definitions we've got so far. And I never tire of telling students how IIT Madras, we have vast tracts of precipice which we are clearing. It's also a government policy. Precipice takes up ground level water, it consumes large amounts of ground level water, so get rid of it. But the same precipice in Rajasthan is valued because it's fodder for the cattle, right? Say they grow precipice and they think of it as a very stable plant to have in the ecosystem. Now is precipice a weed? Now that becomes a question. It's exactly what we have to do when we think about definitions of nature, right? So because a weed is not a wrong kind of plant, but it's just the wrong plant in the wrong place, perhaps. That's all it means. So problems of in ecology, like how to get rid of weeds, what are the pesticides you use, that scientists take care of. But ecological problems, how do you define a weed, are perhaps the problems which have to be taken care of by cultural analysts, people who study literature, people who study philosophy, because much of what is happening to nature is also conditioned by our cultural beliefs. Now this is one of my favorite quotes. I think I use it in almost every conference I go to. This is by a 12th century Zen seeker called Chinyuan. So, let me read it for you. Before I had studied Zen for 30 years, I saw mountains as mountains and waters as waters. When I arrived at a more intimate knowledge, I came to the point where I saw that mountains are not mountains and waters are not waters. But now that I've got its very substance, I'm impressed. For it's just that I see mountains once again as mountains and waters once again as waters. So the master asks, are the three understandings of nature one and the same? What do you think? Before I studied Zen, remember studying Zen is a lifelong exercise, right? If you enter a Zen monastery, you will be asked to meditate on a single question. It's called a koan sometimes, right? And if you come up with the answer, immediately the Zen master will beat you with a stick. You're supposed to think about it deeply till you overcome the barriers of your conceptual mind. I saw mountains as mountains and waters as waters. Totally unmindful of nature, right? That's the first stage. The second stage, I came to the point where I saw that mountains are not mountains, waters are not waters. What does that mean? People who are from the literature stream will understand this. Ever since the 1960s, it's fashionable in literary critical discourse to declare that everything is a construct. Nature is a construct. Everything is a construct. Right? So nature really does not exist, but it exists in language. So Kate Soper, the eco-philosopher, says, it is not language which has a gaping hole, but it is the ozone layer which has a gaping hole. Please be mindful of this. So learn to identify the real thing, she says. So what is the real thing? Very difficult to define because the real thing has become very complex in the Anthropocene age. And the last stage of enlightenment, I see mountains once again as mountains and waters once again as waters. What does that mean? That's the third and last stage of enlightenment, where you realize things in their entirety. Enlightenment includes mountains, waters, as well as minds. So Chinyuan passes through all these three stages. So nature is very, very different. It's an elusive term, difficult to define. So Anthropocene coined by Paul Crutzen, right? So So it's a new epochal consciousness. That's what we have to think of the Anthropocene as, right? Why an epochal consciousness? Because this is the first time that we have gone around altering the world's ecosystems with such ferocious speed. Carbon dioxide concentrations, I'm just giving you the facts, you will know it better than I do. More than 400 ppm ppm level. The CO2 levels have transcended that, right? It's very, very difficult. If you're living in Delhi, perhaps you'll need an oxygen mask just to keep healthy, you know that. And biodiversity loss is happening at an alarming stage. I think we have destroyed nearly 100 species, right? So the world's 6th mass extinction will happen thanks to human agency. That's the Anthropocene. So the local and the global. So if you look at the dialectic of damage, dialectic of destruction, which is reflected everywhere, right? So that's why a visitor from the United States can understand what's happening at the local level, because they have also witnessed this happening there, right? We are now connected, right? Connected is not even the word enmeshed, right? And the word for all of us who study literature or history or philosophy, the word is entangled humanisms, right? Entangled humanism, we share so much, not just with non-human nature, with material nature, with non-life forms, with the biosphere, stratosphere, with the globe itself. So it's like a series of nested Russian dolls, and all of us have played with these dolls, one doll within the other, within the other, within the other, right? And so that's the picture of the universe for you. Everything is connected, and the connections crisscross, right? So you cannot think that you are safe, right? This is not an alarming, declaration that an environmental scholar is making. No. The very fact that connections crisscross us at the material level stands testimony to the fact that we have to engage in a larger sense of the self. What is the self? How do you conceive of the self? Tell me. What is the self? What is the self? Who are you? You are so and so. There's a name. Do you have a boundary? Your mind is a boundary. Does your body have a boundary? Are you very sure? You're not very sure, right? Why aren't you very sure? Okay, it travels a lot, but you're sitting here right now. Do you think you and I are connected, yes or no? Are we connected? How? True? No. No. How are we connected? See, quantum physics will tell you that at the quantum levels, the observer and the observed are connected. The way the observer looks at the observed changes the observed. This is happening at the quantum levels. So if you read books like Fritjof Capra's The Tower of Physics, they talk about Fritjof Capra, who's a physicist by training, a nuclear physicist by training, uses the symbol of Nataraja, the dancing god, to tell you that the entire universe is a dance. It's a vibrant dance. So things which apparently look solid, they are not solid, right? There is a vibrant dance going on everywhere. So this is the latest theory in culture studies. It's called material theory, right? Matter does matter. Okay. So we've discussed these, the old ideas of nature as a pleasant space outside culture into which we might return. An unimaginable cognitive shift the moment the radical eclipse of nature in which even the timeless natural order cannot be taken for granted. Right? So, let me look at the last phrase I put up. So, selfhood is a becoming with. It's a cultivation of interconnections, right? So, Donna Haraway calls it a performance, right? Why is it a performance? We have to perform these interconnections in the realm of art because very often we are unmindful of it. So, how can we do it? Please take a look at this and tell me what strikes you about this picture. Yes, I want answers, yes. I'm sorry, all of you speaking, but I don't able to hear clearly.
A woman crying.
A woman crying? What is the medium used?
Agony of the lady.
Agony of the lady. What is the medium used? Is it watercolor? Or what is the medium used? Is it oil painting? Is it watercolors?
Water.
Watercolor?
Like a broken glass.
It looks like a mosaic, a collage, broken glass. That's what Madras tells me. Anybody else? What? Sorry, I didn't catch you. Dry leaves. Okay. So this is a recreation of the birth of Venus, Botticelli's masterpiece. Let me tell you, it's a digital composition made of thousands of plastic bags, right? So this is art for you. This is Anthropocene art for you. But we have to derive a lesson out of this art, isn't it? So what is the lesson? The lesson is about using the trans-scalar imaginary. What is the trans-scalar imaginary? Suppose, why were we not able to look at the plastic bags? There are plastic bags, but we were at a distance. So we just got the big picture, which is the woman's face, pensive face. But if you go very close, perhaps you can see only the plastic bags. You can't see Venus's face. So the idea is to hold both the distant vision as well as the close vision. That's what you have to do. Like you might ask yourself, if I'm using plastic, how is it going to affect the world? But obviously there is a cause and effect phenomenon which kicks in. So Anthropocene art helps us to understand this. You have to use your memory and imagination to recall what the big picture looks like. And the big picture is very, very staggering, right? See, all of us have data. The scientists here will tell you there's data about global warming, there's data about so many species disappearing off the face of the earth. There is particulate matter rising in big cities. How do you understand data? Tomorrow you have a wonderful plenary by Professor Scott Slovic. Please don't miss it. He's somebody who's worked on how to understand data, right? Because it's a very complex task, this understanding of data. It's just not graphs, it is just not statistics. Now let me tell you what a poet says about understanding data. This is a poet called Annie Dillard, American. So Annie Dillard says, okay, right now assume that there are 1 billion plus people living in China. It could be India as well. Whatever. And she says, imagine yourself in all your singularity. Imagine yourself with all your desires, all your ambitions, all your aspirations. Now multiply that into 1 billion plus. Can you do that simple act of multiplication? Can you do it? She says. The answer is no. It's very, very difficult. So, one way of doing it is through art, right? We already looked at the trans-scalar imaginary. And in literature, because today I'm going to approach it only as a literature person, the entire talk is going to use literary narratives from now on. So as a student of literature, all I can tell you is that great literature, great writing must enable us to enter free narrative spaces. Free narrative spaces is again a phrase coined by the deep ecologist Alan Gregson. So what is a free narrative space? What's a narrative space? Are you aware of that? What's a narrative space? Suppose you're reading a story. What is the story telling you? Can somebody talk about a favorite story which you have read in your coursework or which is just appealing? My other question is, do stories orient you in a particular way? Another way of asking this question is, not just stories, spaces like this, universities are also supposed to give you a free space, a free narrative space, right? Suppose you have a teacher, I'm sure all of your teachers are extremely nice. I'm talking about an imaginary teacher. Suppose there is a teacher who comes up with a very controlling set of instructions saying, you do this and you do not do this. Only this is good for you, this is not good for you. You are orienting the space, isn't it, in a particular manner. But a free narrative space is totally clear. It's free of any controlling master narratives, right? It could be a narrative about the nation. It could be a narrative about politics, or it could be a narrative about the superiority of human beings, or it could be a narrative about, what is wrong in, you're going to listen to Dr. Rajan Singh, very, very inspiring person. Please don't miss that plenary as well. He's somebody who can set the stage on fire. The man who revived 12 dead rivers. So Dr. Rajan Singh was talking about how he had to fight the mining mafia in Rajasthan in order to revive a dead river. So the government keeps telling you, development is good, right? Development is good. It's okay. If we displace people, tribals can always go somewhere else. They can have a new, we'll build them a nice colony. So these are all master narratives, right? But what about the narratives of those people who stayed there for centuries, whose lives are bound up with their ecosystems, right? People, the voices of women, the voices of subalterns, the voices of, other powerless people. You can call them the little narratives, right? The little narratives will be silenced in an absolutist regime, in an absolutist text. But a text which allows you to listen to all these voices is what Bhaktin, the critic, would call a polyphonous text, polyphony. Many voices speaking at the same time. Your voice is speaking, my voice, because nature is like that. If you, for a minute, step outside your human concerns and affairs, if you take a quiet walk in your campus, there'll be many voices. And they're all equally important. The idea is to acknowledge their agency, their right to exist on this earth as much as we have a right to exist. So free narrative spaces. So what is eco-criticism? Scott Swarna, whom you're going to listen to, he's a foundational critic. He said, for 3 decades, I've been trying to find out what is the earth text of eco-criticism, what is the first eco-critical text. And he says, I've been unable to do that because eco-criticism is as old as human writing itself, right? We are just finding new names to call whatever has existed in many cultures throughout. But look at the advocacy function. Criticism worthy of the name arises from commitments deeper than professionalism. So if you're an eco-critic, you're not just doing it for your bread and butter. You're doing it because you believe. This is by Lawrence Buell, again a foundational critic. And the little picture there, it's an engraving by William Blake. You have this little boy who is lassoing the moon and says, I want. Right? So, self-explanatory. Basic definitions. This is the first ever formal reader, which came out in the year 1996. And Cheryl Glotfelty and Harold Fromm just chose to call it the study of the relationship between literature and the physical world. Now, this is very strange, isn't it? You have literature which is totally an act of imagination. Plato thought that poets were very dangerous. He didn't allow poets into his ideal republic. He said poets are mad men. They inspire madness in others. Very dangerous people, get rid of them. So, literature and the physical environment can be quantified. There are laws which can be used to measure the physical world. So, very strange. It was a very new trend which erupted in the 1990s. North American University of Nevada was the hub of eco-criticism. To give you an example of what this meant, let me give you an example. This is from the 1960s. How many of us have heard of Rachel Carson? Anybody has heard of Rachel Carson? Yes. Rachel Carson was this biologist who was studying the use of pesticides like DDT, dialgren, algren. Excuse me. Okay, so these pesticides were hailed as the wonder chemicals because they kept off the bugs. But what Rachel Carson discovered was that entire bird species were just dropping off. Right? And she thought there's something wrong. And then she made a link between DDT and birds dying. And she wanted to publish her scientific results in the language of science. So the agro industry was against her. They stopped her, they kind of blocked her progress. Finally, when she wrote a classic which is called The Silent Spring, a book which anybody interested in environmental thinking should read. It's about the DDT issue. It's written in the form of a fable. The first chapter of The Silent Spring will be of interest to all students of literature. This is how it begins. Once upon a time, there was a town in the heart of America where, I'm just quoting from memory and it'll be wrong, where foxes barked, where flowers bloomed, where fishes swam in the silent waters. So, initially there is this trope of pastoral plenty. Then the narrative goes on. Suddenly, some mysterious malady struck the entire town. The birds stopped singing. And she goes on to say, the people did it to themselves, and no birds ever sang Silent Spring. Now, it's interesting to note that The Silent Spring is perhaps the first book, scientific book, which is eco-critical in its orientation. Eco-critical because simply it uses rhetoric, which is a trope of literature. What does rhetoric do? What does rhetoric do? All of you have done Shakespeare at some point in your life. Friends, Romans, countrymen. How many of you recognize that speech? Friends, Romans, countrymen. How many of you liked it, the students? How many of you are committed to memory? Great. Why do you think it works? Shakespeare, and here we are speaking about rhetoric, the power to influence, right? So, literature gives you that. So she uses two tropes from literature, pastoral. On the time all of us have read fairy tales, we like good things, we like things to be beautiful and bright. That's what the pastoral does. And she uses the apocalypse. We will all die one day and it will be a terrible death. The Bible says that, right? And so she uses, so you have to be shocked out of your, you have to be shell-shocked. You have to be shocked out of your indifference. So, that's the crossover between literature and science, which perhaps Cheryl Lord-Felty's reader trying to instill in the reading public. Look at other definitions. The study of literature as if the earth mattered. Right? So Bruno Latour, a great critic, he says, well, the thing about Anthropocene is this. We all take pride in the fact that we are rational creatures. That's the gift of modernity. But the intrusion of Gaia is, who's Gaia? G-A-I-A. Gaia. Who's Gaia? Any idea who's Gaia? Gaia is like Parvati from Indian mythology. Parvati creates Ganesh from her own skin. Gaia creates the world from her own body. Gaia is the Greek goddess. She, Mother Earth. Prithvi in Greek mythology is Gaia. So there is this interesting theory which is called the Gaia theory. Should I talk about it? I think Professor gave me the liberty to talk for any number of minutes. I don't know whether you want me to talk. Okay. So this is the Gaia theory introduced by somebody called James Lovelock, who was investigating Mars, right? So he came up with an interesting observation that the Earth's climate should have been, or the Earth should have been much warmer than what it is right now. We talk about climate change now, but according to Lovelock, the Earth should have gotten hotter, but for the fact that the lithosphere, the stratosphere, along with the cryosphere, were acting as one unit, as one self-regulating unit to control temperature rise on the surface of the Earth. Now, the Gaia theory has been questioned by scientists. Lovelock has given refutations. I will not get into this. But the interesting part is that Lovelock goes to his friend, William Golding, the novelist, and tells him, okay, I have this exciting theory. Can you find a name for the theory? And he says, why don't you name it after Gaia, the goddess Earth? So the interesting thing is that the Earth can behave like a sentient creature, right? Because sentience is something, a qualitative attitude only to human beings. But here is the Earth trying to link all its parts into one whole, right? So let's go to the next slide. Eco-criticism again. William Howard's very homely definition. Oikos, kritos. Oikos, home, homestead. Economics comes from the word oikos, right? And the ancient Greeks divided oikos as, I think you're very fond of using the word binary. It's interesting. Household, absolutely. So, there's this interesting story about Ulysses. How many of you know the story of Ulysses? He went away and Penelope, his wife, waited for him, and she was surrounded by suitors who wanted to marry her. She would weave a tapestry and unweave it at night. We know how faithful she was. But when Ulysses came back, he hanged Penelope's slave girls. Right? Now that's shocking, isn't it? Because the Greeks were very well known for their ethical principles. All our Western thinking derives heavily from the Greeks, right? For logic, for ethics, many other domains. So the reason was perhaps because the Greeks just thought of servant girls as chattel or property. So anything which is your property, you can do whatever you want with it. Hang them, feed them, clothe them, that's okay. So it was not considered wrong. So the Greeks had a binary, oikion, which is the home, the household, and who belonged to the oikion? Women, children, servants, animals. And the politikon, which was the public space, which was the space for men for important affairs of war, politics. Tamil Sangam poetry, we have corresponding notions. We call them Latha, which is the Puram, which is the space. So, and a critic is a judge. So, eco-critic is somebody, a person who judges the merits and faults of writings that depict the effects of culture or nature of the view towards celebrating nature, berating its despoilers, reversing their harm through political disquiet. But eco-criticism has changed in its focus. So, the first way, we can speak about waves, or we can speak about a rhizomatic structure. I think some people prefer the word rhizome because the rhizome is connected, whereas the wave does not appear to be connected. Whatever. The first wave, 1980, the focus was on preserving wilderness, protect nature, attack people who don't protect nature, earth first, and all those radical environmental movements belong to this period. And the second wave was more inclusive, belongs to the urban cities. Let's talk about urban eco-criticism. Let's talk about how cities get polluted. So, the binary of wilderness versus the rest, that went away in the second wave. And also you have environmental justice movements coming up. The third wave became hugely comparative, right? So writings from all of the world exploded. Today, ASLE India, which is, ASLE US, the Association for Studies in Literature and the Environment, with its hub in Nevada, now it has got sister branches in almost many countries of the global south, right? Pakistan, Bangladesh, India, Singapore, Korea. Japan is not the global south, sorry, but anyway, there are pockets of the global south. So the idea is that, well, you look at voices, the diversity of voices, and you compare them. And the fourth wave, we are currently in the fourth wave. It's about material eco-criticism. It's about the materiality of processes, persons, things. We understand the importance given to the agency of matter. Now, a couple of thoughts, you know this better than I do, but still I'll run it since we are talking about eco-criticism in India. We engage with Prakriti in Indian context. So this is from the Prithvi Sutta. I'm sure all of you know this famous quote, "O Mother Earth, you are the world for us and we are your children. Let us speak in one accord. Let us come together so that we live in peace and harmony." So today when we speak about nature in India, it's become a very conflicted term, right? Prakriti is no longer the pleasant space to which we can escape, right? And the sites of struggle are numerous. They range from forests, dams. What else? What do we fight over? Water wars, name it. Or we are pushing Adivasis out of their homes. Or think about Adivasi Naxal fights in all the borderlands. We have the Andhra Pradesh, Maharashtra borderland, which is famous for these. So it's about a site of struggle, right? So Guha and Gargil, respected environmentalists, they classify 3 types of citizens in today's scenario. Omnivores, sorry, there's a typo there, so sorry, omnivores, ecosystem people, and ecological refugees. So a good word to use is the environmentalism of the poor, right? Guha wrote this article called The Environmentalism of the Poor. Just to point out, our environmentalism is not similar to the first world environmentalism, right? If the United States can think of wilderness parks, we cannot, because if we engage in a wilderness enclaves, right? We had the Project Tiger, for instance, right? The Royal Bengal Tiger, and I'm sure most of you have read that wonderful novel of Amitabh Ghosh. It's called The Hungry Tide. So the tiger is preserved, but you know that the locals have been living for centuries in relationship with the tiger. They will not encroach the tiger's territory. They never do it. But the moment the government brings in, unthinking laws, what happens is the entire human ecosystem as well as the animal ecosystem is tossed and towed. So the environmentalism of the poor is very different from the environmentalism of the rich, right? So today when we talk about eco-criticism in India, it's strictly about the ecological refugees. It's about slow violence. I'm giving you another term. What is slow violence? Any idea? Is there a difference between fast violence and slow violence? What's fast violence? There's a bomb blast. And see how it was on social media and how we all paid our Shraddhanjalis. We watched it on TV, right? That's fast violence. But slow violence is something which percolates over a period of time. For example, there's this nice novel by Ambika Sudan Mangar, a Kerala writer. He's written, it's called Enmakaje, it's translated as Swarna in English. So, Enmakaje is about this small cashew nut growing village, the Kasaragod district of Kerala. Yes, and the endosulfan. So they sprayed endosulfan. The public was not given any real information about what the drug can do. Neither did the guy who was spraying it really know. So monstrous deformities which linger on related thing. Right? So to think like a mountain, you need to think like God. You need to have a 360 degree parikrama around the subject. How many of us can do it? Very difficult. Right? So perhaps the aborigines or the indigenous people knew how to understand nature. So that's why this text talks about the relationship between tribals and the forest, which is manifest in the language of ecology, mutualism, parasitism. So C.K. Janu says the forest is a mother to us. More than a mother because she never abandons us. And the second part of the text is about the political half. She talks about the transformation from the mother forest to the departmental forest, because what happens, like the native Indian children, I think most of these tribal children are sent to schools in cities, and when they come back, they don't like the forest. They don't know their ways of life. So they return as people who have lost their minds, the poorest of the poor. They become the stuff of cinema stories, of statistics. So what kind of life do they lead in the urban ghettos provided by the government? There is no space to stand up straight without drinking water, a place to relieve themselves. The image of a group of unclean people was slowly being created. If you read Native American writers like Leslie Martin Silko, you'll find similar issues coming up. That's why it's nice to do a comparative study. So, what this narrative basically does is plays responsive wording, right? It's important to know what are the rocks under your feet. It's a challenge to all these students here, right? If somebody tells you, please direct me to your department using bioregional markers, can you do it? I think it's still easy in a place like this. You can only use bioregional markers. You must be able to guide a total stranger like me from the road to your department using bioregional markers. How many of us can do it? Bioregional markers. A tree, a rock. So that's place responsive effect, right? That's mooring in a place. All of us have lost it, right? And these Adivasis still have it, and they're also losing it thanks to us. So their struggles are about this loss. So this is a Nava Aranyaka. It's not a philosophical text, because philosophical texts talk about transcendence. You leave the world and you aim for God, who is not of this world. But these Nava Aranyakas written by women talk about immersion in the world. How can I belong to the world better? Right? This is an Anthropocene text. The last text I'm going to read is from Volga, the Latha Kumari, who comes from your own state. It's a very delightful text. I'm going to read, I'm not going to talk, so it's going to be even nicer. I'm going to read from her short story. But just a couple of thoughts. This is another kind of Aranyaka. Yeah. Yes. So this is a cultural eco-feminist retelling of the Ramayana story. That's okay, we should give them free narrative spaces to talk also. That's okay, it'll get over in 10 minutes. Just so, whose Ramayana is it? How many Ramayanas exist? 300, 3,000? Can I tell you a story? Right? So one day Rama was conducting this very important meeting with Vasishta and his other ministers, right? So Lakshmana is asked to guard the entrance, and Rama says, if you allow anybody to enter, I chop off your head. Right? So Lakshmana says, done. Right? And who comes in? Vishwamitra. He's a very angry guy. And he tells Lakshmana, you don't let me in, I'll burn the city down. And Lakshmana says, it's better I die. Let Vishwamitra go in. So he goes in. In the meantime, what happens is, Rama's ring drops down. It falls into the underworld. And Hanuman is asked to go and retrieve the ring. Right? And Hanuman goes down and he is hunting high and low. And finally the demon king who wants to eat up Hanuman initially. But you know, Hanuman can't be eaten up, he's very strong and powerful. So he wins over the demon king. And the demon king says, okay, Hanuman, what are you looking for? Sri Rama's ring. So take it. So he brings him a plate which is heaped with rings of every size and embellishment. And Hanuman is puzzled, right? Which ring is this? Rama's ring. I mean, how can I choose? And the demon king tells him, every time somebody writes a version of the Ramayana, Rama drops the ring. And meantime, yes, what happens? Lakshmana goes rushing and says, Rama, please cut my head. Because Vasishta allowed Vishwamitra to come in. And Rama says, don't worry, Lakshmana, we had finished discussing the important matters for today. So, just forget it. And Lakshmana says, no. You are Maryana Rama, you have to cut off my head. You can't do this. Right? Then Vasishta tells all of them, it's packed up time. This avatar is over. Let's all get into the river Sarayu. And there'll be another avatar, don't worry. So that's how the story ends. And A.K. Ramanujan talks about the story in his book, 300 Ramayanas. So how many Ramayanas? As many, the folk versions, the mainstream versions, versions written by women. I'm going to focus on the Sitayana. Because the moment you say Ramayana, Ayana is a vessel, right? So a Sitayana is a vessel for holding Sita's story. So there is a difference. In the male Ramayanas, masculine identity is achieved because you have to fight, you have to kill, you have to bring back something to the community. But in a female author, Sitayana, the focus is a woman's culture which brings together women and nature in a mutually cooperative relationship of giving, sharing, and receiving. And there are many folk versions in Maithili. Navanitas Dev Sen has done a wonderful study of this in Maithili, Bengali, which talk about Sita's Balakanda. Because Balakanda is something which Valmiki Ramayana will never talk about, right? Balakanda or Uttarakanda, what happens after the war. So the things which are important for a woman, you know, like falling in love, or childbirth, or you know, you have domestic troubles, you know. So there is this little narrative where Sita is complaining of the mother-in-law who is keeping her at work through the day, giving her so many household chores, right? And we have a very cute story from one of our writers, Kumudini, who was a turn of the 20th century Tamil writer. Kumudini talks about the series of letters which Sita writes to her mother. So Sita is married, and in Tamil Nadu we have this tradition of a Tala Deepavali, the first Deepavali after marriage, so where the bride's parents are supposed to bestow lavish gifts on the son-in-law. So Sita says, Mother, get me a peacock silk sari. Then she changed her mind. She said, no, Mother, peacock silk is not the fashion in Ayodhya. You don't know, people in Ayodhya are very, very fashionable. So get me this sari. Then it will continue. You know, it's a very engaging story. You must read it, translation by Paula Richmond. Then finally, Sita will say, Mother, I don't want a peacock silk sari or a gold brocaded sari. Just send me bark, you know, because I'm going to the forest. So, I mean, so how did Sita feel about going to the forest? I mean, none of the male Ramayanas will talk about. What I'm going to tell you is simple things like this, you know. A woman's emotions or a woman's body which is being analyzed. That's what the Sitayana does. So, just take a look. I leave the slides here. Okay. So, wilderness need not have a negative connotation always, because in male authored texts, the traditional Aranyakas or in male authored Ramayanas, it's a place which indicates disorder, right? Whereas in a Sitayana, it can be a place of natural abundance. It's a place where you can attain a kind of self-individuation, right? There are many things possible. So look at this. individuals, self-reliant, independent of behavior, artless, free, spontaneous, unconditioned. These are a lot of positive qualities. Before I come to reunion, I'll mention just one more Sitayana. It's a very interesting Sitayana. This is by Ambai, a writer from Tamil Nadu. It's called The Forest, right? So, in the story, it's an interesting story because Sita one day, she's living in the forest and she listens to the sound of Veena music. And it's such beautiful music, so she's enchanted. And she tries to find out who's the player. And she comes to a little hut, which is very surprised to see Ravana. Ravana's playing the Veena. She says, "Hey, Ravana, you're still alive?" He said, No, I didn't really die in the battle. I just changed myself into a bird and I flew away. And he sits her down and they're chatting, chatting as friends. And Ravana is a very courteous guy. I think the male Ramayanas give him negative balance. He's a very courteous, he's a good lover, he's very courteous. And Sita says, "Don't flirt with me, Ravana, I'm 40 plus now. Don't flirt with me." And Ravana says, No, I'm not flirting with you. It's only when a woman is middle-aged that you need a male friend who can truly be a friend to her. So he tells her, "Look, I can teach you how to play the Veena." And this Veena is a very special thing because, once Goddess Parvati lay on her back and her entire body became the Veena. So it's a sacred body of the mother. So, and Sita tells him, "Put it down, because my life has already been tossed by so many people. Just put it down, I'll pick it up and I'll learn how to play the Veena." So the idea that the forest can be a space where two antagonists of the male author epics can meet as friends is already set in tone by writers like Ambai. And you have Reunion, which is Vibhukti from the collection Vibhukti, translated as The Liberation of Sita. It won the Sahitya Academy Award, right, by Lalita Kumari, right, known as Volga. Now, this entire story is about the meeting between Sita and Shurpanakha. I'll stop talking in a few minutes and I'll start reading. Just a couple of minutes. So, Shurpanakha loses her nose. I think all of us know the story right from childhood. Why does she lose her nose? What does she do? What does she do? What does she do? Okay, she falls in love with Rama, who is very good looking. And she
made a complaint to her brother.
She made a complaint to her brother. That comes later. No, but and she's jealous of Sita. We agree on that. But she's ragged by Rama and Lakshmana. Even Valmiki Ramayana talks about it because Rama tells her, a Rakshasi is not supposed to look beautiful because this is Aryan concept of beauty and the Dravidian concept of beauty. So Rama tells, this is Valmiki Ramayana, tells Shurpanakha, "You are so good looking. My wife is pot-bellied, she's hideous. But unfortunately I'm married. You go to my brother Lakshmana. He's not married. He's such a handsome fellow. Lakshmana was married. And see, both of them, they tease her. And she believes it. And the nose is cut off in Valmiki's version. If you come to Kamban's version, Kamban, a great poet from Tamil Nadu, Kamban wrote this work called Ramavatar. There, it's not the nose which is cut off, the breasts are cut off. In Tamil culture, if a woman's breasts are cut off, it means her power is totally gone because that's the cultural signification. So there are different interpretations of what Shurpanakha loses, and all this is like very, very painful, isn't it? So Reunion is about these two women meeting. Sita, who has been abandoned by Rama, she's spending time in Valmiki's hermitage. One day her children bring home beautiful flowers, and I'm going to read from them. Mother, the garden is so beautiful this She came out when we were plucking the flowers. We got scared. Anna gathered courage somehow and told her, we are from the ashram, we are collecting flowers for worship. Then we hurried out, his face contorted with disgust. Her form was so hideous, she was so ugly, Lava recalled with a shudder. That's wrong, son. Never loathe people for their looks. She's grown a very nice garden, even though she's ugly, hasn't she? Said Sita. So Sita realizes it's Shurpanakha and she tells the boys, I'll come with you tomorrow, the next day, whenever you go to the garden. Shurpanakha's coming. How beautiful she had walked in. White jasmines in her hair, garlands of yellow ganeru around her neck, bracelets of Nidamara on her wrists. She was like a walking creeper in bloom. She looked curiously at my jewelry as if wondering why I burdened myself with all that metal which had neither fragrance nor grace. She only looked at me, didn't say a word. She went up straight to Rama. I kept doing my work while paying attention to their conversation. After a while, there was bloodshed in the ashram. A woman's heart-rending cry. How much she must have cursed us for that act. That curse has still not left us. So, this is Sita thinking about the past days. So she goes to the ashram. Surpanakha was stunned. Sita, is she Sita? How much she's changed? Surpanakha only knew that Sita covered in jewelry. Moreover, she had never taken a close look at her. It is this Sita, the consort of Chakravarti Sri Ramachandra, who slayed Ravana and extended the Aryan Empire across the entire south. Shurpanakha could not believe it. Why this poor sari? Why these garlands for jewelry? Why this sun-singed gold complexion? Stopping Shurpanakha before she could complete the question, Sita said with quiet dignity, I am Sita, and Janaka's daughter Janaki, and daughter of the Mother Earth. She's matured a lot, thought Shurpanakha. Yesterday my children saw your garden, they saw you today. Today they brought me here. Your garden is so beautiful and peaceful. Were those your boys? How charming they were, Shurpanakha said. A fleeting expression of pride crossed Sita's face. It did not miss Shurpanakha's attention. All the creepers, plants and trees in this garden are my children, Shurpanakha said. Yes, that's why they're so beautiful. I'm happy to hear that, Shurpanakha. I was worried about you after the humiliation you suffered. I know how you hankered after beauty. I was worried that, unable to accept your own mutilation, you might have resorted to something extreme. So Shurpanakha says, looking at my ugliness, men, all the handsome men that I desired, used to abhor me. Those days were hellish. I saw no point in living. My heart burned with pain and anger every single day. How much I cursed Sri Rama and his brother Lakshmana I knew. I spewed venom at all of you. There was not a trace of love left in me, I'm sorry. Then Sita's curious, how come then you became the person you are today? So she says, I'm going to end with this. It was hard finding the real meaning of beauty. I was so proud of my beauty. You don't know how much I adored my nose. The sharp nose of you Aryans looks strange to me. This beauty and strangeness too, of course. My nose was neither sharp nor flat. It was, I thought, exactly how Ishwar must have conceived the perfect nose at the beginning of creation. I was so proud of my nose. I used to adorn it with yellow and white flowers, which shone like stars on either side. When my lovers tenderly kissed the tip of my nose, it appealed to me. No one except I will understand what it means to lose such a nose. I endured all that misery. I endured the burden of all those perverted thoughts that arose out of my disfigurement. Sometimes I felt like disfiguring everyone, everything. To come under that spitefulness, to love beauty once again, to understand the essence of form and formlessness, I had to wage a huge battle with myself. The only collaborator in that battle was infinite nature. So, nature takes on the form of a guru, a teacher, where you understand that the polarities, the dichotomies coexist, right? So, in a manner of speaking, Shurpanakha becomes a guru to Sita. she tells Sita, look, your children will go away to their father one day. They'll go away to the city. So when they go away to the city, you come back to the forest because this is where you truly belong. And Sita says, yes, perhaps I will come back. So in conclusion, Aranyakas, Nava-Aranyakas written by women, advocate a partnership ethic. What's a partnership ethic? Man is not adversary, right? You work alongside people who are different from you. It could be man, it could be an Adivasi, other, it could be the garbage in the back of your yard. You work with everything that constitutes your environment in the attitude of a serious, caring steward, right? That's what a partnership ethic really means. I conclude with this, and thank you so much for your attention. I think I've taken a very, very long time.
I bought a pot of rose plant. Americans have a small variety of roses. It's a small pot with small rose plants growing in it. So we brought it to the home. And I was, I love flowers and plants, and so I was, she also bought some other plant. So I kept it in my room. She has another plant in her room. But slowly, my rose flower pot started withering and it started developing some disease. So I thought, no, it's not good in my room, so I left it outside. I thought it would die. But Swarna, one day when we were coming back from Harvard, said, why did you leave this here? So she took it to her room, and every day she used to sit and put her hands like this around the pot. And I asked her, what are you doing? She says, there is some force going from my hands into it. It can revive. And believe me, in 10 days, the plant revived. And again, it started growing. So that is Swarna. So, and I'm really happy that she has come all the way. The second time she is coming to Nannaya University. And we were together there for 6 months, and the first place that we thought of going after we landed there in America was to visit Niagara waterfalls. And the second place is to the Walden Pond. You remember all that, okay? Walden Pond is very close to the place where Harvard is, some 50, 60 kilometers away from Harvard City. So we went there, we spent a whole day there. See, a love for nature, okay? And the way she revived the plant, and now the way she is, has become an eco-feminist. Can I call you like that? No branding, no branding. So I'm very happy that she is here. And if you have any questions, I think she has mesmerized you with her lecture completely.